Politics. I'm your host, Darlene Price, and tonight we have some excellent co-hosts here tonight. We have two experts, actually. We're going to try to cover 3 topics, but first, before we get started, we want to thank, again, the executive producer behind the camera who makes it all happen, Michael Mann. Without Michael Mann, and I know he's like, please don't mention my name, but it's just like, we can't function without him. In fact, the entire justice system, probably in McCreary County, Kentucky, if something happened to him, would we come to a screeching halt?
The target on my back.
I'm sorry. But anyways, welcome aboard. And we want to thank all the folks at NBR TV tonight we're live on NBR TV too. And all of our folks in Pulaski County and all the counties around now that are watching us. We want to welcome you to Truth or Politics. Tonight we have back Larry King, which helped us launch Truth or Politics 13 years ago. Almost, it'll be 13 years this December, man. Can you believe that? And I'm still alive.
There you go.
And also Dan Gibson. These are 2 people that launched, and Dan's still with us, and Larry is too. We're all together here 13 years later. So we are thank you all for tuning in. We want to thank everybody who makes Truth or Politics happen. We're going to try to cover 3 topics. Okay, we're going to try to cover food and what's happening with our food. We're going to do an update on the lake, and we're going to hit briefly at the end the black bear population. Okay, because we're getting a lot of it's just that black bear season. So we're going to try to touch on that too, and some safety precautions and some stuff going on. So, okay, so food. Here's what happened. Now, this is why I have Larry on. Larry is as much as an expert as anybody can get, and he's going to go into his background, and he's been doing, organic food and stuff like that, and farmers market for years, so he really knows his stuff. Kind of like Dan knows his stuff in the bear industry and the hunting industry. Okay, so what happened was a couple weeks ago, I posted a meme, and it was a joke about Soylent Green. For everybody, all you young people are not going to know what I'm talking about. There was a movie back in the 70s, right? 70s.
70, yeah.
It was called Soylent Green. And Charlton Heston, right? Charlton Heston. Big. In fact, it was like an Oscar-winning movie, Soylent Green. And it was about the future and how they were feeding people in the future. And they find out, they expose right at the end, big shot. Sorry, spoiler alert for you. It's a good movie. Go watch it. But they were grinding up people, killing people and grinding them up. And so Soylent Green was actually people that you were eating. So I just totally blew the ending of that movie. But anyways, I posted a funny meme about our food and Soylent Green. The response to that I found just shocking. People started posting pictures of Campbell's soup and what is now being listed, genetically modified food, bioengineered food on Campbell's soup. Somebody else posted marshmallows and what was being, this is real, folks. These are real food things that people were posting pictures of, and it was jaw-dropping to me, and I should have known better. I mean, I always kind of knew, our food sucks, we're giving poison. Well, that's why I got Larry on here, okay, and also Dan, to start off this, because immediately people started saying, you need to do a show on this, so we are doing a show on this. Larry, tell us first off your involvement with the market and your knowledge and how you got it and everything, and then I really want to get into bioengineered foods, what it is,
okay,
how dangerous it is, and genetically modified crops and food.
Right.
Go.
Okay, well, just give you a little background. You can tell by my size, I do like food, so I'm expert from that end for sure.
I want to say something else too. By the way, I also want to plug both these gentlemen. Both these gentlemen are military veterans, honored military. We're all veterans here, so and I just want to say I'm very proud that we try to do a lot for veterans through the show, and we try to have veterans on, and these guys are also veterans. So go ahead. Sorry.
I started when I retired to get into a little bit of organic farming and getting in the whole farming community and attending some UK classes and start trying to learn about what was going on in our food system. It was really interesting. One of the first things that got my attention was I went to a session on farmers markets, which we do have a nice farmers market here, a nice one in Somerset also. But interesting, somebody from DOD was at this training session. I'm sitting there going, DOD, why is DOD at a farmer's market training session? Well, it kind of just turns out that DOD was looking at food centers across the United States. You know, mainly our food is located in the San Joaquin Valley in California, is one of the big areas. A few other areas across the United States. On average, your items in your supermarkets are shipped 1,500 miles to get here, to get to your supermarket. So, the experience we had with COVID, we saw how that went. Anything can interfere with your food coming to you if you're buying, you know, your produce, your food at a supermarket. So that was one of the things that really caught my attention. The second item that caught my attention was we see farms everywhere. Everywhere you drive, there's farms. Well, there are soybean farms and they're basically field corn farms. You do not see farms growing a diversity of vegetables and, you know, animals and that sort of thing. We maybe saw in the 50s and 60s growing up. So yeah, there's farms, but I don't know about you. Eating field corn and soybeans probably is not going to be very good for anybody, and that's what we have a very limited food arrangement in our country, where food comes from, how it's transported, and we're basically little islands. And the big point again I'm going to say is anything can interrupt that flow, as we saw with COVID. So it could be fuel, it could be trucker strike, it could be, you know, any of those things. That supermarket usually could last anywhere from 24 to 72 hours before it needs to be stocked. And we all know what happens when we see two snowflakes. I always say if there's two snowflakes in the county, one on the south end and one on the north end, what happens at our supermarket?
All the bread's off the shelf, all the milk's gone.
It's cleared out. So we know that, let alone have a real emergency that would happen. So what I usually start with is I tell folks, if you're at home, at least if you can't write it down, think about it. You know, write down 5 things that you know about the food that you buy. And you name 5 things about the food that you buy. And most people, think about it as we go through the show, think about the 5 things about the food you buy. Do you know? What do you know about it? Well, that's one of the key things, is knowing your food. You know, we tend to shop like zombies. You know, we grab that shopping cart, you can watch them, you know, as they go into the supermarket, and what are we doing? We're just grabbing stuff.
I literally try since I met you.
Yeah.
And you've been teaching me. I really try to shop organic. But it's hard.
It's hard. It's hard. But, you know, we're packaged. Everything's packaged a certain way. The levels of the items on the supermarket shelves are all psychologically figured out. I mean, all this stuff. We're shopping zombies. We're just grabbing stuff and throwing into the cart. We have no idea what we bought. We have no idea how it was handled. I mean, nothing. It's just there. It looks pretty, and we buy it. I brought in some tomatoes. Those on your radio, I've got a heirloom tomato, and it's pretty ugly looking. You can see it's got a lot of ridges. It's probably bigger than my hand, which I have very large hands. Very large hands. And this is a supermarket tomato. Isn't it pretty? Perfectly round, nice and red. The difference that you get into here is most of the tomatoes that you buy, just one example, in a supermarket have been picked green and shipped, gassed on the way here, and turned red, just like your bananas and your strawberries. When they take these apart, they do the study between a tomato like this and an heirloom version. There's about a 50% nutrition loss. And that's true in a lot of our vegetables now, because the vegetables that we get today are bred for what?
Longevity.
Shipping, longevity, mechanical harvesting, being able to pack them, be able to send them across country. You know, they don't rot as fast. There's all these modifications they've done into these vegetables, but they sure look good. They sure look pretty because we buy with our eyes. So when you go into the supermarket and you see these really pretty tomatoes, you need to think about that. Second thing, we go to the market. I've seen people. We cut open a heirloom tomato. We get 2 types of people. We get young people who say, gee, I've never tasted anything like that. I didn't know tomatoes tasted that way. Good. We get older people who said, man, I haven't tasted a tomato like that in 20 years. Well, you probably so, because once again, you know, what you're buying has been modified not for you, not for your health, not for your nutrition, but for harvesting, packing, and shipping, not necessarily eating. So those are some things you really need to keep in mind, when you're out buying foods. Same thing if you buy a can of green beans. You've got to look at those green beans. When you buy aspirin, you can look at the label. It's going to tell you what to do, what not to do. When you buy this tomato, if you go down, and I'll use also if you go down the side of a road and somebody set up on the side of the road, do you know what this tomato was sprayed with?
No.
Do you know what this tomato was grown in?
Nope.
Okay. Good example is you buy garlic. You get in the store, you see garlic without the root system on it. That's China garlic. China garlic is grown in human waste and sludge, heavy metal sludge. But there's not any rules there. There's not any rules there on that. So when you buy locally, and you use your farmer's market as an example, you can talk to that person. How did you grow this? What is this, an heirloom? What kind of sprays did you use on it? I know I once had a neighbor. I would look at his garden. Man, it was textbook. It looked like something out of Better Homes and Gardens. But he would be out there spraying every morning. I seen him sit down and go, man, I don't feel good. I'm going, okay. Common spray we've all used growing up, he used. But on the label, if you read the label, you know how many times a year, a growing season, you could spray?
It should be one.
4 times. 4 times within a growing system, he was spraying daily. So if you don't know to ask questions about your food, or if you're not connected with that farmer, you're just buying something from the supermarket, you buy something alongside the road that somebody else bought from a truck market and brought it in, you have no idea what's going on with that food. And you gotta be knowledgeable about your food. You gotta be more knowledgeable about your food. We were talking a little bit earlier. When I grew up, did anybody have a peanut? I went to 4 or 5 different school systems across the United States. Do you know anybody with a peanut allergy?
No, never
Okay,
heard of that.
being gluten insensitive.
Right.
Yeah, all this stuff is
Or lactate. Nobody had lactate sensitivity. Nobody. Everybody drank milk. Nobody had lactate sensitivity.
So if you're not growing yourself, or if you are growing yourself, make sure you know what you're doing on sprays, insecticides, and herbicides. Take the time to read the label, because your heirlooms may not look pretty. I mean, that does not look pretty, but it's a whole different world in nutrition. And just the background on it, I can tell you exactly what it's sprayed with, which was some organic spray. I don't even think they sprayed these. And the soil. Some people say, you talk about organic buying, it's just going to cost you a little bit more. And that is because my seeds are more expensive. My fertilizer costs double what regular fertilizer costs. If I use any of the organic sprays, they're going to be double. And to be organic certified, I have to go, the land cannot have anything grown in it for the past 3 years. Nothing. It has to be inspected. All the stuff I use have to be on a list. It has to be inspected. Now, if you want to be a farmer out here and grow anything you want to grow, you don't have to go through that. You can spray biotoxic nuclear waste, I guess, if you want, because UK is not coming down and looking at you, looking at your records, making sure that you don't have a treated fence post within 500 feet of where you're growing at, and on it goes. To me, it should be the exact opposite. If you're an organic grower, okay. If you're not an organic grower, then you should be heavily looked at. But that's not how the system's set up. Plus, there's a fee. If I'm going to grow organically and be certified organically, then I got to pay a pretty hefty fee for UK to come down and certify my area that I'm growing in.
But big corporations don't have to pay the fee. They don't get looked at. And, we're going to tie that into, again, somebody, I forget who it was. It may have been Harvey. No, I'm kidding, Harvey. I know you're watching that. But somebody a few months ago said, Darlene, you just want to tie everything into campaign finance reform. You think everybody's bought off? And I went, yeah, I do. Yeah, and I can. And here's a good example. This is it. Big corporations that do corporate farming buy our politicians, and politicians make the laws to where organic farmers have a harder time. There you go. I did it again. More expensive.
More expensive. And when you're thinking about, you come through in January and you're going, gee, I can buy those tomatoes. They look really good. Or I pick up a watermelon. That's out of Mexico, maybe South America, south of the equator, and you think that we have loose rules.
Yeah.
Just imagine what's coming out of Mexico when you see, if you're looking at your labels and it says, grown in Mexico or wherever it's at, just think about what the standards are there compared to our standards. So you need to really be aware where your food's coming from. Just because you've got a nice looking tomato in January, it comes out of South America. Who knows what standards it was grown at? So, know your food. Know your food and keep that in mind when you're buying for your family. Like I say, I see a lot of illnesses. More and more, there's one source. There's one source. We're seeing females develop earlier than they have ever developed before. Males in the country now have 50% less testosterone than your grandfather had. So there's only one source. When you boil it down to, there's only one source this all comes down to. It's your food. So, be food aware. Prices and everything. I mean, yeah, maybe you're going to pay a little bit extra, but how much do you pay for cancer treatment? How much do you pay for, if you peanut allergy, you eat something with peanuts, you have to go to the hospital. On and on it goes. I mean, it's not a cost neutral. You will end up paying at some point in the process. So think about that when you look at your food. Like I say, most of us, I call us shopping zombies. We just go down there and start throwing stuff into the shopping cart. But you can do better than that. Like I say, there's a big program out there called Know Your Farmer, Know Your Food. And that's picking a farmer. Farmers have CSA, which are shared agricultural products, where you put in a fee, and every time they harvest, you'll get a bag with whatever they have growing at that time. That's a good thing to do. Once again, I'm going to plug your farmers markets. Talk to your farmers. Make sure here at our farmers market in McCreary County, we have a rule it has to be locally grown or touching our county. You can't buy something in South Florida and green beans and bring it here and sell green beans at the market, because we don't know what those are. You can't ask the farmer, you grew those, how did you grow them? Is it an heirloom? Is it not an heirloom? You don't know anything about those products, that's been brought in from somewhere else. So that's just some good food sense, educate people back into good food sense. So think about that a little bit. We really work hard at the market, making sure that we have a good variety. It is in season. That's something I tell people. No, you're not going to find a watermelon in May. It's not going to happen, nor are you going to find sweet corn in May. It's all seasonal. When it comes in here, when it's ready, then we're going to have it. We do have some people, I do have a high tunnel. There's some other people that have high tunnel. Some crops do come in early. But yeah, it's nothing shipped in. We do not do truck marketing, and we make sure that all of our people are local people that you can talk to.
And I think Somerset pretty much follows the same rules.
Yeah, a lot of the farmers markets do, and you can ask the market manager when you go there, and ask them about what their policies are. Be smart about your food. We are in a process for the county. I've applied for, and I met with an individual today out of Frankfurt. It's a $250,000 matching grant to build us a new farmers market. Some of you have been to our farmers market, know where it's located. We're in the end of the pavilion there in the equipment shed at the Soil Conservation. But we're looking at, if you've been to Somerset, you saw their new market, or you've been to Corbin, saw what they had going on there. That's something that we're looking at. We're also looking at a community certified kitchen, where if you want to do a secondary market, if you want to turn something into, let's say, jelly, then you can do it in a certified kitchen, then you can sell it Kroger's or wherever. So we are looking at expanding the market into that. But we're looking at, if we get to $250,000 match, we do have some private individuals raising money now. We've got some other people, some organizations raising some money. I'm meeting with the physical court on Thursday here in McCreary County. So if you know any of your magistrates there, if you're interested in having a really nice facility, it's not just going to be a farmer's market. It's going to be a community center that can be used for different events. And like you say, the processing, the kitchen. So we're going to have freezers and cold storage there also. We do have, in the county, we do have beef producers at our market. We do have pork producers. And you can talk about, do you use hormones? If we're talking about, the difference in our bodies today, a lot of that comes from meat hormones. People are pumping, the cattle full and the pigs full of hormones, and chickens. So you can talk to our vendors there and ask them, hey, how about your beef? How about your chicken? How about your pork? And they can tell you. They can give you the background. So I'm really excited for the county to have, a new facility of that size, and like I say, a multi-use facility for the county.
All right. Here's a big question I have.
Sure.
Explain what bioengineer. First, we'll get into the other stuff. Bioengineered. What does that mean when it's on a label? What does that mean, and why should we be concerned?
Well, let's start that most countries now have outlawed GMOs, except the United States and a few others allow GMO and bioengineered foods. You can't do that in Europe. You can't do that in Australia. You can't do that in Japan. Here in the United States, we are allowing it. We also don't have to. You do not have to label it. You know, it doesn't have to be labeled. So when you pick up this tomato, as an example, you don't know if that's been bioengineered. You don't know if it's been GMO. You have no idea because it does not have to have a label. Some products you pick up on there says non-GMO. That's letting you know it's not, but they don't have to tell you that it is. So let's start there. You know, back in the day, let's take corn example. You're a corn farmer and you harvest your corn. You go, gee, this one's much bigger and nicer than this one. You put that seed back. Every year you do that, your corn would improve and improve and improve. And that's how for thousands of years we developed our vegetables, and even our herds, even our meat animals. But today it's a little different. You know, here in America we do stuff like gene splicing into our, especially corn. Corn's a monocrop just about. There's only 3 or 4 versions of it. It is gigantic. Corn crops are so big that they change weather in some areas. So that's how big they are. And that's all genetically altered. You know, it grows faster. It'll tolerate drought better. It will produce more. I mean, if you want to go down that road, it checks all the boxes. But we don't know what those altered genes do. This is a recent thing. This isn't something we've studied for even 25 years or 50 years or 100 years. This is fairly recent. We don't know what altering the genes, besides the outcomes I talked about, can do, especially to the human body, or to animals. We have no idea yet. We're in the very beginning of studies on how that affects us.
Yeah, because we feed all that corn to the beef and everything else.
Corn is in everything that you would eat, plastics to your soft drinks. There's a big difference if you drink. When we grew up, your drink had cane sugar in it. Today it is corn syrup. Corn syrup from genetically modified corn.
Right.
So we have no idea yet what the effects of this is going to be. We do know we've all gained weight. We were talking about in the 60s. You look at some of the videos, maybe concerts and stuff from the 60s. People look like that big around. I mean, there are.
There's no people.
There's very little people have weight. So we're just now learning if you've followed the new hormone they're giving to treat sugar diabetes is causing weight loss because the hormones that I discussed earlier are so out of balance. And that's coming from somewhere. There's one thing that crosses all spectrums, and that is our food. Also here in McCreary County, USDA has deemed us a food desert. So a lot of areas through Appalachia has been named a food desert, but we are a designated food desert, meaning that we do not have enough access to fresh grown vegetables. Most of our stuff, the majority of it, is being shipped in. The other thing is really amazing to me because we think everybody grows gardens. I mean, I grew up, everybody grew gardens. That's not so today. I mean, it's a dying, almost, I hate to say, a dying art. There's a younger generation as you get into the 20-somethings, they're picking it back up. But between here and 60, there is very few people, when you start talking to them, that grow their own food, know how to process food. It's amazing when you start talking to people. You go to the supermarket, you latch onto that cart, and you start throwing stuff in it.
They have no idea. Shopping.
Yeah, zombie shopping. They have no idea where it came from, what it takes to grow. One of my favorite jokes is you just take a seed, you go out back, you plant it, and next week you go get a cheeseburger, right? It's just that simple. But, there's no concept of how difficult it is, to grow. And it is difficult. Things can really affect it. And like I said, you need to understand what sprays are used, the soil, what fertilizer, because you're eating all that. That's going through you, that's going through your children. I mean, there's just no way around it. Whatever you put in your mouth, if it's touched something else, that's going through your system also. So you just need to be aware of that. The genetically alternated stuff, I mean, like I said,
That's
it's
next.
yeah,
seeds.
GMO. I mean, they're actually putting in, you know, genes from fish into corn or tomatoes, or you know, that's just one example. And yeah, it's more pest resistant. You know, pests may not eat that, but guess what? That altered gene that they put in there to keep pests from eating, guess who is eating it? You are. We are. So yeah, I mean, they're making all sorts of changes that production-wise, money-wise, if you're a farmer and you're growing corn and you're getting, I don't know, 50 bushels to the acre, and all of a sudden you can get 75 bushels to the acre, financially that looks great. But as you consume it, who knows?
I have a question.
Sure.
I've seen a generation of this thing we're talking about, and with all the variables and all the unknowns and all the things that are anti-nature going on, and I've heard of some of this already, that certain seeds will not reproduce. Many different varieties of seeds now, because of all this change will not reproduce. Now, nature has a way of rebelling often against what man does, and what would happen if all of these seeds, by some event, maybe a change in the weather, maybe a volcano goes off in the Pacific somewhere and darkens the skies for a month or two. And
Yellowstone.
Yellowstone. What are we going to do if that event causes all this to come to a head, and
That's a good
all of a sudden
question.
we have no food?
That's a good question. Mexico is the example, banned the GMO and the bio, you know, messing with the genes, and especially in their corn, because they've got really ancient varieties of corn that, you know, historically if something wiped A out, it didn't affect B. Here, like I said before, we've got 3 or 4 strands of corn. I'm going to go to corn, and if something hits those strains that we don't know about, you know, or have it planned for, it is gone. What's worse than that is if we don't have the ancestor to that particular crop, you know, the ancient ancestor grown like in heirlooms, then we can't reproduce that. You're just done. You're gone.
That's his point.
Yeah, so we do have a couple seed vaults. One's in Norway, I believe, and there's another one I understand. I forget where it's at, but we do have a couple.
Isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's a Colorado one. But yeah, if we lose any of our biodiversity seeds, we're done.
At that point, since it says that it's all about the money, how much are those seeds going to cost each?
Well, even now, after COVID, seed prices have doubled.
I'm talking about the last seeds on
Yeah,
Earth.
well,
how much are they going to cost?
It's
Is anybody going to be able to afford those?
you're just done. And especially
That's
like we
what
go
I'm
back to corn, because there's so many products, including this plastic bottle here, made from corn, that and medicine, and I mean it goes on and on, paint, you name it. Then I mean it's all downhill. You're going to see
A domino effect.
gasoline. A lot of your gas or biofuels. You're going to see a complete wipeout, and you know it just takes one variant. It just takes one variant to go in there and take that genetically altered product down.
And here's the thing: how do we get here? Again, okay, to the person who, like Darlene, you're always saying how we got here again is lack of campaign finance reform. Okay, let's back up here a minute. And yes, I can link somebody said, I'm trying to remember who I was arguing with, not arguing, but you know, everything wrong in this country. Yes, I can try, absolutely. I can track back the campaign finance reform or the lack thereof. Okay, we used to have laws at the state level, that's your state representatives, your state senators, and at the federal level, your U.S. senators, U.S. congressmen. Okay, we used to have laws against, you know, pay to play. We used to have laws against basically bribing a congressman or bribing a senator. Okay, we don't now. You know, a lot of people are really on to truth of politics. You got to go after SPIDA. You got to go after SPIDA. Okay, so and I'm kind of looking at SPIDA, and you know, this is for Pulaski County. It's a board. The problem that I'm seeing, like a lot of boards in Kentucky, okay, which we've exposed the Kentucky Boxing and Wrestling Association. We exposed it, a pay-to-play system over there, and and it was rectified. But here's the problem: when you, the voters, play this party politics, and I know I sound like I'm beating a dead horse. You hear it every show, and that's fine because I'm right. Okay, when you keep voting the same people in, the Mitch McConnells, the Nancy Pelosi's, and it's both parties. And my son has the best analogy. He says, hey, the Democrats and the Republicans, they're just the opposite side of the same bought-off coin. That's all they are. Okay, and until we start, I have an old saying, fire them all and let God sort them out. Until you people start going to the polls, especially in the primary elections, and start firing these people who brought you this, okay? Because they're bought off by these farming corporations. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
The laws, these, let's say big corporate, some big corporation that does corn, okay? What they do is they go to, K Street. We talked about K Street. We'll get into that K Street. That's the lobbying place.
That's the lobby lane.
He made a good comment the other day. Instead of January 6th, what they should have done is they should have attacked K Street if you wanted to fix stuff. Okay, lobby lane. These lobbyists, go represent the corn industry, per se. They go and they literally go up to a congressman and say, here's what's going to happen. You're going to support this bill that supports all the big money. Not the organic farmers, not the little guy. You're the big farmers, or big oil, or big electric, or all the big pharma, pharmaceutical industry. They approach your congressman or senator and say, you're going to support this bill that, by the way, was written by Big Corn, okay? And if you don't, we're going to primary you. What we're going to do is we're going to run somebody against you in the primary, and you're out. And so what happens is 99.9999% of the time, your current congressman and senator fold like a cheap suit because they want to stay in there forever, okay? And that's where we're at. So this is why your food's being poisoned. This is why DuPont, for almost 40 years, has been able to poison all the lakes and rivers all across America, and now there's all these lawsuits. It's because DuPont is still one of the richest corporations in America, and the FDA, or not the FDA, the EPA at the federal level can't hardly get a bill passed because your congressmen and senators, your Mitch McConnells, your Nancy Pelosi's, and it's both sides. I'm sorry, they're both. The Democrat Party's bought off by these people, and the Republican Party's bought off by these people. Okay, I mean that's what it comes down to. They're all bought off just by different things. And the voters have got to take this seriously. We got to start having voter turnouts that are record-breaking, and fire these people. Fire them. Quit playing party politics. I don't care what party they're from. If they're in there, I got friends from California watching this right now. And I love my California people. I lived out there for a long time. I got people all over. We got people in Paris that watch this show. You gotta stop playing party politics. You gotta fire these people. Fire them all and let God sort them out. And because only a newer person is going to even listen and even have a chance to start new legislation. And it's at the state level too, folks. It's your state legislation. We exposed a whole big problem with, Pulaski County Evidence Room. Well, it's not just the Pulaski County Evidence Room. It's evidence rooms all across the country, all across the state of Kentucky. None of them are being inspected. Nobody cares. This is how innocent people go to prison, okay? Now, what has your state legislature done about this? Nothing. Nothing. And you say, well, it's not my problem. Well, until your ass gets pulled over by a cop who's corrupt, okay? Then all of a sudden it's going to be your problem. Until you start eating this food that's poison, till you drank from Lake Cumberland or downstream because of the stuff that's going on up there. We'll hit that here in a few minutes. It is your problem. All of it's your problem. And the way to get campaign finance reform and to stop this pay-to-play and to stop the K Street is first you got to fire the people up there benefiting from it. If you don't fire the people at the state level and at the federal level who are benefiting from this right now, then you're not going to get anything done.
A lot of people don't understand government to start with. I mean,
Right.
about 95%, I was telling you about the classes I used to teach, you ask who your congressman is. If you go ask, who did UK play, what was the score, who was top player, you go down that list. I did this across the country, just like, Kentucky. And most people will run down the sports team. They're going to tell you every statistic that you can possibly name. But if you ask them the 5 bills, I always like to use figures, the 5 last bills that your congressman or your representative voted on and how it affected you, crickets. Probably 50% cannot tell you who their elected representatives are. But I want to go back to you talking about your politics. USDA is the second largest department in the United States government. Okay, there's EPA and Homeland Security. USDA is the largest. With like any department within the government, when administrations change, there's all these positions that are political appointees.
Right.
Okay, you got your standard government employees that's been there forever that carry out the policy, but then when the politics change, the parties change, like the White House example, then they bring in all their people from a lot of them from corporations. I worked at USDA quite a bit, and they put those people into key positions. I'm going to use USDA as an example. So
that's pay to play.
All the corporations,
I helped you get elected. Now I get a job in the government.
All the corporations that have an interest in USDA policy programs, they are now inside running part of the USDA. And once again, same thing with Homeland Security or Treasury, wherever you want to go, it's all the same. So at the end of the term, when somebody else gets elected, those people all go away. The next group comes in, and then they're pushing their agenda. So you need to know that it does make a difference. Farms and farmers. We have very few farmers and ranchers elected into the U.S. House and Senate. So we really do not have a big voice up there. When somebody puts a bill forward that says X, Y, Z, and you ask somebody, there's nobody there at that table who can say, well, wait a minute, that affects us this way or that way. That expertise is not, because we don't elect farmers and ranchers. And, we have lost our farms from the 1960s has dropped by 50%, the number of farms. The number of large farms have increased by 50%.
Corporate farms.
They're being bought, little farms, little farmers, and you're still talking thousands of acres. A lot of examples are being bought up by corporate farms. A lot of these farms are owned by countries.
China.
Yeah, other entities outside the United States are beet processing all now owned by China. Are being bought up. All these are now mega farms. Or mega corporations is basically what they are. So when you have a mega operation like that comes mega money. And with mega money you can have
mega buying politicians.
Yes, so that's where we're at. We lost, when I grew up in Kenton County, Kentucky, in the late 50s, early 60s, it was just one little farm after the other. Everybody had tobacco base, you had some cattle, you grew some hay, you were diversified in what you grew and what you did, some dairy. Those are all gone. Those are all gone.
If these farms that are owned by these foreign entities, if they're assisted in acquiring and allowed to own these farms, and their complete process is to hurt us, take money, bigger money than we can actually afford, and give us bad food, would that be considered treason to work against the citizen of the United States?
What I always say on land, my rule would be on land, Larry's rule would be land, would be if you're Germany and the rule is that Americans cannot buy land or own land or rent land in Germany, then that should be the rule of the United States. You should not have a policy where anybody can come in here and buy up land, because food's critical. Food is critical to our infrastructure.
Yes.
You've given that away, a large part of it. Plus, guess which the largest one of the outside of the fence? Guess what? One of the largest where the money goes. Supplements. It goes to farms. You go, oh, that's great. The farmers are getting money. It's not the little farmers that you and I think about.
It's not organic farmers
No.
either.
It's the farms that these foreign
It's these
entities own.
mega, gigantic corporate operations.
Does that not sound treasonous to you?
Well, you know, once again, as I told you before, this was 15 years ago at least, maybe a little bit more. The average congressman in the United States, sitting in the House of Representatives, had to raise roughly around $15,000 per week in campaign funds to stay in the game. That's the minimal. That was absolutely minimal.
Okay. In that case, we've got all these folks out here looking for doomsday. They're all scared to death they're going to starve to death, and they may. They're scared to death that these foreign countries are going to shut off their food supplies, or some incident is going to, trucking or electricity or whatever, is going to shut off their supplies. And that could happen any day. All of that could happen any day.
Absolutely.
Now, I have a question about the foods that the forests produce. These people are going to need a place to get some kind of food. And I know that there are many sources of food, very healthy, very nutritious sources of food in the forest. What's your ideas about that?
Well, I'm going to go back to what we were discussing a little bit earlier, and that is this age group thing. We have the younger people, there's a group of them who are way more knowledgeable, and then you have an older group, probably getting in your 60s and up, that are knowledgeable. And between that, you know, food comes off a supermarket shelf, period. They have no idea where it comes from, how it got there, what's behind the process. They have no idea, except food magically appears in their supermarket, you know, daily. There is, if you try to live off the forest, unless you're really, really, really good, you're not going to make it long. I'm just going to tell you.
Yeah, and then when winter hits, that food's gone.
You can starve to death eating deer. You can starve to death eating rabbit, as an example, because there's not enough fat content in that to keep you going.
They've
So,
got to
yeah.
know these things, or they're not going to survive.
And you just
And
can't
most
run out
likely they
back.
won't.
You just can't run out back and say, oh, gee, I need to start growing. I need to start raising. I mean, it is a process you learn every single year. And something you may raise this year, you know, I've had years, I think spinach was last year. Nothing. Years before, plenty of spinach. You're going to have up years, down years. Just if you go back, you know, maybe 100 years and read, you can see how, you know, that went up and down. And you had to eat seasonally. You know, when stuff where apples were in, that's when you ate apples.
I know all about
Or you had to preserve apples for later on. Even preserving stuff. I know my wife was doing some canning. A niece came up. Some of her friends came up. They were probably 20s, maybe early 30s. Never canned. Never saw food being. We take that, a lot of us, for granted, especially in this area, because we see it all the time. Or I had seen it all the time. It's not out there anymore. It's not out there anymore. That knowledge is gone. When I was little, we got a tree, an apple tree on the homestead there. My mom would cut those slices up, put me on the roof drying them. I mean, I had to go up every day and take them down. I remember that was my job. But, you know.
Oh, I ate a lot of poke salad when I was
Yeah,
young.
all that sort of thing. It's out there, but the knowledge is not there. And we were talking earlier, you know, everything you say can change in a heartbeat. Our grid is extremely fragile. It's
Our
fragile.
electric grid.
Our electric grid is extremely fragile. Even solar flare can take it out. On and on it
And
goes.
it's fragile because, again, we have relinquished this
we've
to
sold
greedy corporations.
Can
And let me just say this real quick. There's a series called Why We Die, and I got a
It's a
brain
good one.
fart. It is great. It is covering what we're covering tonight. It's taken like what happened in Texas back.
Their power grid, yeah.
Power
They got
grid.
sold off.
How it went down and people died and everything because greedy corporations took over it, and instead of putting that money back in the power grid, they pocketed it, and then they had a natural disaster. Was it heat wave? Wasn't it heat wave?
Cold. It was freezing in Texas. It froze that.
Freezing. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Freezing, and so it went down, and people froze to death.
And the other end of that, people had automatic deficits out of their bank account to pay the electric bill. Some of the electric bills shot up $2,000 and $3,000, and you know you go down, you've been wiped out in your account. You didn't even know that was going to happen.
Right.
So yeah, I mean it's scary. The system,
I was just going to tell a
As we
story that tells how
said,
fragile it is.
like
Go ahead.
COVID.
54 years ago, I was stationed on a little island in the South Pacific called Johnson Atoll. I was taken out of the military. I was in the Air Force at the time. They took me out of the Air Force and put me in this thing called Joint Task Group 8.6. And all we did was top secret research and development of nuclear, biological, and chemical weapons. We detonated.
That's why he glows in the dark. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
We detonated a device over Johnston Atoll in the South Pacific, 900 miles southwest of Hawaii. That device generated an electromagnetic wave
EMP.
that blew most of the transformers in Hawaii, put them no electricity for a month or so, and that was from 900 miles away. So in other words, if any country that has nuclear weapons wants to totally shut our country down, I'm talking about ruin us. I mean everything. They could not do it over the United States. They could stand back with the weapon. This was 54 years ago. Imagine now they can stand back 1,000 miles off our shoreline and detonate such a weapon.
One
and overnight we would be gone.
One small nuclear weapon centered over Kansas will take out 95% of every electric grid in the United States. It cannot be brought back up for 10 to 20 years.
The point I'm trying to make is they don't have to get
Fragile.
near the United States to do it.
It's fragile too.
Well, and a lot of this, again, it's because it goes right back to this pay to play. It goes back to campaign. Until this country gets serious about real campaign finance reform, and it makes it to where conflicts of interest are no more, pay to play is no more, and this is relatively new. This pay to play being legal and conflicts of interest being legal is just within the past 20 years. Okay, we used to have laws, maybe 25 years, right?
Yeah, it was Jay Wright, Supreme Court did the ruling.
Yeah, we used to have laws against all of this. And your current leadership at the state level, too, these boards, okay? These boards, most of them are all pay to play. You help me get elected, you get to be on this board. It doesn't matter if you're qualified or not. And some of these, like the employment boards and stuff, they're so rigged it's not even funny. So that, so people keep saying, well, you can't connect everything to campaign finance. Yeah, I can. Just about everything. I've challenged somebody that you give me some topic what's wrong with this country today, and I can guarantee you I can trace it back to campaign finance reform.
The two things you can do to work on that is your vote. Is going in there, watching who you vote, making sure, looking at some voting records. Yes, right. I know. You're going to have to turn the TV off for a minute and go look at, how your representatives are voting. That's key to being a good American.
I agree.
That's how you really a good American know what's going on. The second one, it is America. It is a capitalist society, so forth. I call it an oligarchy. We moved from capitalism to being an oligarchy some time ago. But it's your dollar. If you're going to go on people on the radio, I'm holding up a supermarket tomato versus, your farmer's market tomato. Where do you spend your dollar at?
Right.
Your dollar speaks loudly. If you're spending all your dollars in the supermarket, as an example, then you are perpetuating the system. It's not being interrupted. You're feeding that system. If you take and spend your money differently, then you're getting, in my opinion, a better product. You're having knowledge of your product. You're having control of your product. And you're supporting those people, those small farmers out there, small producers out there who's really trying to make a difference and really trying to hang on to the heirlooms, really trying to make sure you have safe food. It's all about where you choose to spend that dollar. And I realize I can go in a supermarket and it's real convenient, like I said, a shopping zombie to throw all that stuff in your cart. But, it takes a little bit of effort. I really applaud, I hate to say it, don't hate to say it, but just point out younger people, the 20-year-olds, the early 30s, they have really adopted this. They have really started, voting with their dollars. I'm seeing a lot of people at the market now who come in and are voting with their dollars. They're saying we no longer are going to support, because if you take the money out of it, it's just not going to live. It's just not going to survive. So they are actually using their money to make a difference. And it does help your small farmers stay in business. We're not getting $1 million subsidies from the government. Nobody writes, oh, here you go. Here's $10,000 to go, do this, or $100,000 to do that. Small farmers, they're not in that line. They don't get that. So vote with your dollars. Be knowledgeable on how your elected officials vote and what they're doing and what bills they sign on to. Yeah, it's going to take you 10 or 15 minutes every once in a while. but you're an American citizen. That is your duty to know what's going on. And I encourage people to run. You know, sometimes, well, there's not a choice. Well, there may be a choice. You may be that choice. You have to step up, and you're going to have to support people to get out there and run to make the difference. It's not going to change on its own. I agree with Darlene. It just is not going to change on its own. But once you become more and more knowledgeable, and you start asking the questions, and you start seeing how all this is linked together, everything from your farmland being bought up.
Because you guys have access to these state representatives that come around, and they give a speech. Watch how quickly they just want to give a speech and leave. Don't let them. This is what we try to do, truth to politics. No, we go on like, oh, no, hold up a minute.
What's the saying?
I got a few questions here, which they hate us, and I don't care.
What's the saying? It's Bibles, babies, and guns. You know, politicians will come in, they'll slap everybody on the back, they'll talk about 3 or 4 subjects, and that's it. They do not want to discuss anything else. They may never have supported any of those bills. They may have never even looked at any of that, but they know they've done the research. They know what items are hot. They know how to talk to you. They know what you want to hear. But you got to reverse that. You've got to say, hey, even at the county level to the national level, politicians work for you. Okay? And if they're not doing what you need done, then you need to start getting in there and making a difference. And like I say, you need to stay off these hot button issues, because most of those items don't even come up to be voted on. You know, they're never going to come up to be voted on. Second Amendment's there's not going to be any changes there. All the stuff they throw out to get you excited about has nothing to do with what's really going on. I know not a local politician, but a congressional politician, everybody was really talking high on. I said, this person's been in office 30-some years and has put one bill on the floor. 30-some years, put one bill on the floor.
And that's what their job is.
And you think this guy's greatest thing since sliced bread.
Right. And you can make a difference. And this is a good segue, because the folks in Somerset made a difference. Okay, we got, and Dan was instrumental in this and his group up in Pulaski County. Let's segue into an update on Lake Cumberland. Okay, very quickly. Last city council meeting, please go watch it, even if you're not from the city of Somerset. If you live in Pulaski County or surrounding counties, it's worth a watch, because what happened at that city council meeting was interesting, to say the least. The Watco owner, the guy who was making money off of bringing in this leachate, and if you're new and you don't understand what's going on here, okay, the citizens of Somerset became active. They demanded change, and they won. You can fight City Hall, and you can win. Okay, they did. We stopped. The citizens did. They get the credit for it. They stopped. At this point, probably over 70 million gallons of toxic waste. I'm sorry, but that's what it was, in the form of what's called leachate, from coming in through a defective wastewater treatment plant and then going straight into Pittman Creek, which flows into Lake Cumberland, which flows into Cumberland River, all the way downstream to Nashville.
How much of that's being picked up used for agriculture?
Right, agriculture, exactly. So, we exposed it. If you get a chance, go to YouTube, type in Lake Cumberland, what really lies beneath. There's parts 1, part 2, and a forum. And we got it stopped. And it wasn't, Truth to Politics just got it rolling. Okay, the citizens up there, thank you, came out and started firing questions and demanding answers. And, I just want to say this. First off, thank you to everybody who did that. You guys are all heroes out there, because you showed up, you asked questions, and it's done. And he finally said, no, it's done. And then, of course, he threw his little tantrum at the end of the meeting, which was quite interesting. I just want to say this. Look, in all my years, of being an investigator, but first for the prosecution, almost 40 years now, and then for the defense, I want to say this. And Mayor Keck's final little words up there about this, he tries to come off as this white knight, just trying to pull off, put a small town of Somerset on the map. I just want to say this to people, to everybody. People, beware of white knights. They're not there to slay dragons. They're there to train them for their own purposes.
Also, beware of bread and circuses.
Yeah, So just beware of this, not just with what happened in Somerset, but all across the board, okay? So we just want to do an update with that. And I don't have time tonight, but I've also posted Mayor Keck's latest spending. Again, just unbelievable. And now, you know, they're saying there's a budget shortfall and there's problems. Please go and scroll down on our Facebook page. For some reason, YouTube won't let me post these documents, okay? But it's on the Facebook pages, all of them. And one of the things I find interesting is he's spending like $500 or more a month for two different what do you call them? I wrote it down here. Hang on a minute.
Advisors. Advisors.
Like, I'm sorry, I just got off track here. Two different, hang on. Marketing experts. Okay, these are two different firms. One of them, one of them is out of Georgia. It's Hella Good Service Marketing, and these are basically they sell themselves as experts. We're going to give you the expertise of how to run your organization or how to run your government. And you citizens up there are paying like $500 or more, because there's two of them, $500 a month for one of them. Hell of a market thing. For Mayor Keck's executives, he's got 3 or 4 of them, by the way, who spend a whole lot of money on coffee and trips and everything else. Well, if the citizens are paying that much money for a marketing group, 2 of them, to tell the executives how to run the government,
Well, they need him.
why do they need Mayor Keck? Okay, that's another thing. And back on the Liche thing, there's something I want to bring up too. Final word is this. The people of Somerset, some of them were born at night, but not last night. Here's the deal, folks. It comes down to this. If bringing in millions and millions of gallons of toxic waste and running it through a defective wastewater treatment plant, if that was such a great idea, why did they hide it? Ask yourself this. Think about this. They hid it from the city council. The city attorney says he never even saw or got to read the contract. They had an employee sign the contract, They wouldn't even sign it. Mayor Keck didn't even sign it. I can only think maybe plausible deniability or something. They didn't hold a public forum beforehand so people could ask questions. They hid this. This is one of the biggest examples of a good old boy, who's your daddy backroom deal I've ever seen in my life. If this was such a great idea, why did you hide it? That's what this comes down to. So, City of Somerset, the citizens up there, you did a great job. Okay, real quick, segue into bears. You had a quick comment, because I want to get into bears real quick.
No, go ahead, because this was about back on the food
back
thing.
to-
That's all right. We could talk for a week about that. We had the public all primed and scared to death, and we didn't give them anything to look forward to.
What do you mean didn't get him?
Well, they're all thinking doomsday now, I think.
Well, no, he did give him some answers. Now, one answer is get rid of your current politicians, because they're not voting, they're voting corporate votes, not for you, not for the individuals. That's one of the answers.
How many civilizations has done that? None.
Well,
They've all failed.
Well, I don't know. You got other countries, almost every other country is outlawing bioengineered foods and genetically modified foods. So the citizens of these other countries are putting pressure on them, and they're doing it.
They respond,
Good.
politicians
It's gonna be all right,
respond.
folks.
You're going to respond
Well,
to the
I hope so,
dollar,
you're
but they're
right.
respond to the vote. But yeah, it's just good. When I grew up, and you grew up, what was the thing? Your parents always try to make sure, well, you're going to move up one step. Grandparents made sure your parents kind of moved up a step. You tried to make sure your children moved up one step. That
But
was kind of the
somehow,
American.
During our generation, that didn't happen, and I feel
Yeah.
I evidently have done great wrong in not convincing my children they ought to change and be responsible citizens, like and evidently everybody is in the same position, because our
slipped through a
generation
little
dropped
bit.
the ball somehow. I don't know how, but somehow we did.
The thing is just recuperating from where we're at. We're not in a good position, but we're resilient, and we can make changes.
There you go.
And it's about being educated as a citizen. I mean, we were talking earlier, civics apparently has been abandoned at all levels.
Yeah, we used to have to take civics.
Nobody knows how the government works.
School.
Nobody knows what the processes is. Everybody's mad. I don't care what side of you're mad, but you really don't know what you're mad about. You know, when you sit down and you talk to people, they really don't. What they're mad about is how the system's working. It's not working for you. It's not working for me. It's not working for us. And that's really, when you get down to it, it's what they're mad about. People are not moving that extra step. Grandpa helped Dad get here. Dad helped me. People, it's flatland out and now going down a little bit. So that's what everybody is pretty upset about if you boil it down to it. Nobody's moving us forward. This party's not moving us forward. That party's not moving us forward. But the responsibility is yours and mine. It's not because Joe the politician failed or Jill the politician failed. It's because we have failed to hold those people accountable.
Absolutely.
And that's what, and people say we can't fight City Hall. And yes, we just proved you can. Citizens of Somerset fought and they got something done. So you can fight City Hall. You can get things done. Okay, we're going to go over a little bit over. I'm going to hit the bears real quick. Okay, it is black bear season. Okay. Where we're at, and we're in, for folks that are out of state watching, we live in the Daniel Boone National Forest, and we have tons of black bears, okay, especially in our county. And I know they're out and about and getting in anything. And they're starting to get, you know, to where they get in people's yards and stuff. A couple things I want to cover. First off, the best way to haze a bear out of your yard successfully is don't shoot it. Please, you don't have to shoot it. I mean, if it's coming at you, going to attack you, okay, you have a right to defend yourself. If it's just walking through your yard, get a metal pot, old metal pot, metal spoon. Bam, bam, bam. For some reason, that noise scares the bejesus out of them. They will take off. That scares them. So that's one thing you can do. Secondly, just common sense things. Watch your trash, folks. You know, these idiots throwing trash out on the side of the road, okay, your McDonald's wrappers, it smells like food. It also smells like human. What the bears do is they associate human smell with food smell. Yeah. That makes them dangerous. So these clowns, these neighbors of yours throwing this trash out, they are putting us in danger. So if you got a neighbor, somebody you know is throwing trash out like that, you as citizens, again, you need to be responsible. Report their butts. And I'm telling you, this courthouse has been going after them, haven't they, Michael Mann? They have been going after them.
That's great. That's great to hear.
They have been, it's you either get out and pick up trash and pay a fine, or your butt's going to jail. So they have been hell on wheels when they get the evidence on these people throwing out trash or you know, going in the woods and dumping. They've been going after them. So
great.
So that's another thing about the trail. Okay, I posted a lot of pictures. Behind my house, there's a game preserve, and I got a lot of people looking at my pictures and everything, and I have a concern about this because some of the questions I got. Okay, let me be crystal clear. Those pictures come from trail cameras. I have dozens of them back there. For you would-be poachers who think that you're going to go in that game preserve and poach one of those bears or some of the other wildlife back there, know this. I catch you on one of those trail cameras, I will turn you over. Okay, and these trail cameras are pretty good. And I've got dozens. You won't know where they're at. And you will be caught, and I will make darn sure you're prosecuted. If I have to put up the money or whatever it takes myself, you will not go into that game preserve behind my house where I've posted these beautiful pictures of this wildlife and poach. Because I will make sure that you are caught with these trail cameras, and I'll do whatever I can to make sure you're prosecuted, okay? I posted those photographs because we're trying to promote tourism here. Gatlinburg was created because of black bears, period. That's why everybody started going down there. We have black bears here. We have wildlife here. I want to promote tourism. That's why I post those pictures. I do not post them so idiots can go back there and poach. So please, don't think, no, I have dozens of those trail cameras back there, and as you can see the pictures I posted, they're really good, and they will catch your face.
I always say I would want to be in prison in Atlanta at the federal pen for like cutting a Forest Service tree or killing a piece of wildlife. If you think going to prison in the cell with Bubba is worth that, then I say knock yourself out, because they will prosecute you to the fullest.
Right. So, any more? You're the hunter expert. Any more bear safety tips?
I have a couple of things I'd like to say. First off, bear are animals. Their logic is not the same as ours. And they eat what they associate to be food and what their parents taught them were food. And through the years, they've started to associate food with human beings, and that is dangerous.
Very dangerous.
Now,
And let me be quick. A lot of you follow the show. You know who he is. You know his past. He is a retired big game hunter guide in the Rocky Mountains. I mean, he really knows his stuff when it comes to wild animals. That's what he used to do. Okay, go ahead.
If tourists would like to see wild game here, there's lots of different wild species that doesn't get the attention that bear do, but they're here.
Right.
We have several different species of large cat.
Yeah, we do, and I've got
we
some
have
of them.
puma. We have a large size black cat, big as mountain lions. These are long-tailed cats, big large cats. We have a type of bobcat that is almost as big. It's not your normal bobcat. It's bobtail, but it's almost the size of a
And
puma.
it looks like a mountain lion. I know. I'm trying to get it on my
I've
trail
seen all
cameras.
of these animals, and there's several more. I haven't seen Bigfoot yet, but you never know.
Maybe I'll get that on my trail cameras. I spend a ton of time in the woods. I practically live in the woods behind my house. I've even wrote a poem about the woods behind my house. And I'm real protective of the woods behind my house and the game preserve. So, but okay, so back to the bears. A lot of it's just common sense, folks. And if you have a problem, we do have, an animal control guy. His name's Smitty. He really knows his stuff. Call the courthouse. You can call the county attorney's office. They know how to get a hold of him. 376-2333, 606-376-2333. They know how to get or about any of the courthouse numbers. They know how to get a hold of Smitty, and he can help with that. Also, just folks, just use some common sense with this stuff. And anything else? Final last word. I know I didn't get to get into a lot of this spending. You can see it yourself. Go to the Facebook page, scroll down, and you can see all the spending. And just ask yourself this: is this how the citizens of Somerset? Do you want to buy somebody's $50 a week or something on coffees? I mean, should your tax money be going for that? So, anyways, sorry we didn't get that much into that. But you can go and look at the spending yourself. We've posted it on several sites, and just just be your own judge of that character. Anything else? Last words about food.
Support your local farmers, buy local, and know your food.
And organic. Support organic if you can too. Organic. Anything? Last word. Folks, thank you so much. We are about 7 minutes over, so we will see you next time on Truth or Politics. Thanks.